my name is Alexa and I am one of the mountain school instructors here at the North Cascades Institute. Welcome to our first mystery skull video. Ooh, ah. Our last skull video focused on introducing our skull program. We went over the three main types of consumers we're going to focus on. We've got herbivores that eat plants, carnivores who eat meat, and omnivores that eat both plants and meat. We also went over how to identify those different types of consumers, but also different features on the skull that can help us figure out what specific animal it might belong to. If you haven't watched that one yet, I suggest pausing this video and going back to that one really quick. That will set you up for success for this first Mystery Skulls video. Awesome. We're going to dive right in a moment, but not yet. I am going to show you this first animal skull up close and personal. I'm going to show you a bunch of different angles of this skull. I'm going to open its jaw. And your task, while I do that, is to pause the video a few times and write down a few observations that you're making. So things that you're noticing about the skull, whether that be things about the teeth, the eyes, if it has a sagittal crest, maybe just the overall shape, what it reminds you of, the size, things like that. You're going to pause the video and write down those observations first. And maybe while you're doing that, be thinking about the challenge that I gave you at the end of the last video, which was to brainstorm a list of different herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores that live here in the North Cascades. Awesome. Once you have time to write down your own observations, I will go through and talk about all these different features of our skull so you can kind of check your work as we move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you our first mystery skull. All right, awesome. Hopefully you had a chance to pause during that little show and write down some things that you noticed about this skull. I'm gonna go ahead and start going through different features and you can go ahead and check your work. So I'm gonna start with the teeth. So when I look at this skull, I'm noticing, and I know that you can't feel it for yourself right now, but I'll do that for you. I'm feeling some like little bumps, but all of these teeth are kind of the same height, and same with the top of the skull too. They don't look to me like these sharp, pointy teeth, which makes me think that this animal might use these back molars for grinding plants, and maybe that might mean that it's an herbivore. I'm also noticing too these flat teeth in the front that also don't look like these super sharp meat-eating teeth. They kind of remind me of my front teeth. Nice. Awesome. We're gonna move on to the sagittal crest. So remember, back to our last video, a sagittal crest, if present, looks like a little tiny shark fin on the back of a skull. If that's present, that tells us that the animal has a really strong bite because those jaw muscles are attaching all the way up at the top of the skull. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. Do you see any shark fins? I'm going to feel around back here. Feels pretty smooth. I'm going to go ahead and say there is no sagittal crest on this animal, which makes sense when I think about this animal maybe using these teeth to grind up plants. Eating leaves doesn't necessarily take a super strong bite. When I think of a strong bite, I think of an animal chomping down on some prey. So that kind of adds up in my mind. Now, moving forward, let's take a look at the eyes. Maybe compare them to my eyes that are looking straight forward at you. Do you think this animal has eyes facing forward or eyes on the side? Might be a little hard to see, so I'm going to try one other trick to help demonstrate. I'm going to stick my fingers, through the eye sockets of the animal, and we'll see the direction they're facing. What do you think? I'd say this animal has eyes on the side, which means it might like to hide. So this animal might be a species that is a prey animal for maybe a carnivore or an omnivore. Those eyes on the side helps it to be aware of its surroundings, aware of its body, to hopefully escape the predators. Awesome. All right, last, we're gonna really quickly, I'm gonna hold this skull up maybe next to my face, and we'll get a general sense of the size and shape. When I do this, the skull looks almost as big as my face. Interesting. Now when I hold it to the side, it's quite a bit longer. We've got a longer snout or nose here. So maybe a good sense of smell. But this animal is maybe fairly large. It's got a pretty big skull. Interesting. All right, awesome. So you, awesome scientists, just collected so much excellent evidence that is going to help us in identifying our skull. Next up, we're going to be working on our claim, or our best guess as to what animal we think this belongs to. So in a second, I'm going to hold up this sentence frame if you need a place to start. But your task is to write down your claim, so your best guess, as to what animal you think this skull belongs to, and 3 reasons why you think that. So those pieces of evidence could be things that you wrote down at the beginning of this video, or that we just talked about, or something else entirely. So I'm going to hold this up, and please pause, please pause the video and write down your claim. This says, I think this skull belongs to blank because reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Go ahead and pause. Awesome. Hopefully you had some time to do that. I wish I was there with you in person so I could hear all of your excellent guesses. I know they were awesome. But I'm so excited to reveal the identity of this mystery skull. You might have guessed it. Can I get a drum roll, please? This animal is a deer. Nice. You may have these near your home as well. Lately, I have been seeing a lot of deer around our environmental learning center up here, which has been super fun. Kind of as spring emerges, we've been getting little leaves and buds popping out of plants, and those make tasty snacks for our friend, the deer, who is an herbivore. Nice. So before we go here, I wanted to show really quick just a few more examples of different herbivores that do live here in the North Cascades. These aren't the only herbivores, but we do have a few more cool skulls in our collection that we they might as well show up. So the first one I want to share with you, I've got a little missing tooth right here. Maybe you have a guess. We've got those flat molars again. This is a beaver, our ecosystem engineers, woohoo! This animal is super cool though because it is an herbivore, but it does have a sagittal crest. It's kind of hard to see on this one, but there's a tiny ridge on the back of the skull right there. And you can see it a little better on this skull replica, so I'll hold this one up. Right there. Even though this animal eats primarily plants, you may know this about beavers, but they chomp on trees. And I don't know if you've tried that before, but trees are pretty hard. So having a strong jaw is super important for the beaver friends. We've also got porcupines. What? They look pretty similar to beavers, in my opinion. And they too munch on trees sometimes. They've got that little baby sagittal crest. And one last teeny tiny herbivore before you go. This is, oh, it's so cute. This is the skull of a pika. Now these are little tiny rodents that live in talus fields, so kind of when you see a boulder field, lots of rocks all around. If you've been hiking here in the North Cascades before, or in this region, you may have seen them before or heard them. You'll know it's a pika if you hear meep, 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 and they're one of the cutest things I've ever seen. So there you have it. There are a few cool herbivores here in the North Cascades. Nice job. Thanks for sticking with me. I had a ton of fun investigating our first mystery skull with you, and I will see you at our next mystery.